So that's been my focus, and trying to show even small business owners and operators how they can appeal to their customer's brain. 95% of our brain's decision-making processes are non-conscious.
Are you unknowingly leaving money on the table because you're marketing the wrong way? If you're relying solely on logic to sell your programs, products, services, or offers, you're missing out on 95% of your customers' decision-making process. Yep, that's right. According to neuroscience, most of us, we make our decisions. They happen before we even consciously realize it. I'm Deirdre Martin, your host of the Master Your Business podcast. I'm a triple certified, award-winning international best-selling author, and my mission is to help entrepreneurs like you make your first 100,000 or your first million. And today we're diving deep into the brain science behind marketing success. That's why I am beyond excited to introduce today's guest, Roger Dooley. Roger is an international keynote speaker and the best-selling author of Brainfluence and Friction, two must-reads for any entrepreneurs who want to tap into the science of persuasion and make their marketing work frickin' harder without working frickin' harder themselves. So in this episode, you're going to discover what neuromarketing really is and why it's a game changer for solo entrepreneurs and small business owners like you. How big brands like Netflix, Expedia, and Amazon use neuroscience to influence buying behavior, and how you can too without their budget. AI's surprising role in crafting psychology-backed marketing that converts, and the ethical side of using neuromarketing, how to persuade and not manipulate. This is not an episode that you want to miss. So hit play now and don't forget to rate, review, and follow the Master Your Business podcast wherever you're listening today if you get value out of this episode. Roger, it's such a pleasure to have you on the Master Your Business podcast. Welcome.
Well, thanks for having me on the show, Deirdre. I'm looking forward to our chat.
Well, this chat could be quite a lengthy one if I had my way, Roger, because you've got so many books that are wonderful that I've read, and I can't wait to ask you some exciting questions about them.
Looking forward to that, and I'm sure we don't want to make it too long because your audience, very busy people, entrepreneurs who are trying to keep probably 10 different balls juggling in the air. So we'll try and give them some really useful content.
Fantastic. That's it. Oh, you know them so well already, Roger. So
I've been there myself.
So for what we're going to talk about today is neuromarketing. And for those who are new to neuromarketing, Roger, would you please explain what it is and why it's so important for these busy solo entrepreneurs?
Sure. My definition of neuromarketing is any use of our understanding of how the brain works to improve your marketing and sales process. It's a pretty broad definition. Traditionally, or in its early days at least, neuromarketing involved typically measuring brain activity in some way using a tool like an fMRI, a multi-million-dollar brain scan machine you only find in hospitals and universities, or EEG, which uses electrodes outside the person's head to measure exterior brain waves. It's not nearly as detailed or as accurate as what you might get from fMRI, but it's much less expensive to do. And lumped in with those techniques and other brainwave measurement techniques are things like biometrics, measuring people's heart rate, breathing rate, galvanic skin response, and various other biologic metrics that aren't necessarily neuroscience, but they do augment that data. And they're often sort of substitutes in some cases for a brainwave measurement. Then also eye tracking falls into that same category. It's not technically a biometric measurement, but often eye tracking is part of that, so that as you're measuring how people are reacting, you can see what they're reacting to. Now, that's the traditional definition. But what I found was early on, I started writing about this, 20 years ago now, and the tools available then were accessible only to the biggest brands, the Coca-Colas, the BMWs, and if you didn't have their kind of budget, you really couldn't even think about using neuromarketing, at least the type that I just described. But what I found was that there was a lot of scientific literature on how people make decisions, how they react to different situations, how they respond to different kinds of prompts and influences. And that was the avenue for businesses of any size to employ neuromarketing, where they may not be able to hook up their individual customers to expensive machinery and measure their reactions. But if their customers are human, and most of our customers are human, they could use this immense base of behavioral science knowledge, psychology knowledge to improve their marketing. So, for the last couple of decades, that's where my focus has been, skewing ever more heavily toward that behavioral science, that psychology component, not ignoring the other tools, because in fact, even those traditional tools are getting cheaper and more accessible. And we can talk about that too. But that's been my focus, and trying to show even small business owners and operators how they can appeal to their customers' brain.
That sounds amazing. There's a lot of technical words in there as well that some people mightn't be familiar with or understand. But really, I think what it boils down to is that understanding this or tapping into it can maybe help people understand how brains make decisions. Is that right?
Right, exactly. And according to Gerald Zaltman of Harvard, 95% of our brain's decision making processes are non conscious. So if you're trying to convince your customers to buy from you only with very rational, logical arguments, these are our product features. This is why we are better than the competition. That may be important information, but you're only appealing to a small part of your customer's brain. And really, to be successful, you have to incorporate a lot more. And if you can see the evidence of this, if you look at some very sophisticated marketing companies, think of travel booking sites. If you go to an Expedia or a Booking or one of these big travel sites, you will see all kinds of cues that are based on behavioral science. You'll see there's only 2 rooms left at this price. That's employing the concept of scarcity, which is one of Robert Cialdini, a famous scientist in this space, one of his 7 principles of influence. You will see what how other travelers have rated this. There's 1,000 ratings and there are 4.5 stars. That's social proof. You'll see text comments. Stayed in this hotel and loved it. More social proof. You may see that this was rated the #1 hotel by Travel and Leisure magazine. That's appealing to authority. Yet another Cialdini principle. And everybody does this. Amazon does this. And people don't always recognize these. I mean, they're so common, they don't think of them as being based on how their customer's brain works. But all of these things are very, very important. The biggest brands actually employ behavioral science teams. If you go to a Walmart or even let's say a company like Expedia, they actually employ behavioral scientists in order to optimize their marketing and also optimize other aspects of their business as well. But most businesses cannot afford to have a behavioral scientist on staff. So what they have to do is turn to things like books, like my books, and many, many other books, podcasts, and now more recently, artificial intelligence can be a great aid in how to apply these techniques, even if you don't have your own in-house expert.
Mm. Oh my gosh, there's so much powerful information in there. And you're right. I'm just picturing I was sitting last night after working late, looking at Netflix to think what's on TV and what do I look at? What's the top 10 movie shows in Ireland right now? What are the top 10 TV shows and movies? They list them both because we want to know what's popular. And then that's what we go with, right?
Well, exactly, and they do other things too. One thing that Netflix has pioneered, my first book was Brainfluence. That was often was mostly about employing these psychology-based techniques to improve your marketing. My second book is called Friction, which sort of builds on that knowledge. Cognitive scientists believe that there is a law of least effort that governs human behavior, that people will gravitate to the least demanding path. And that's sort of the fundamental principle that underlies the entire book. But a lot of it is about customer experience, also employee experience. But one very smart thing that Netflix did is what they win when people keep watching Netflix. Okay, their objective is to uh, have people watch so much Netflix that they wouldn't think about canceling their subscription
Mm.
because if you got a streaming service and you look back, you get that bill again a month later, and wow, I didn't watch anything on that channel last month. You're going to cancel it. But on the other hand, said, wow, I spent 10 hours a week watching Netflix or more. You're not going to cancel it. So what they did was eliminate the friction from choosing the next thing you want to watch. If you do not make a conscious choice, they will automatically start playing the next thing for you. And this is how they keep people engaged and watching because people are distracted, and if suddenly the next thing comes up and it looks interesting, they're just going to keep right on going. And so they've eliminated even that little bit of friction in having you choose to watch the next episode or choose to watch a related type of show, and they make that choice for you and do it automatically.
Mm. I mean, it's so cool when you think about the steps that they've taken to make that happen because, yeah, it's about finding customers, winning customers, and keeping customers. But for the small business owners, the people like me who have one employee or 10 employees, how can we take these sorts of concepts and apply them in our businesses when we don't have we don't have the big budgets to pay for a behavioral specialist to come in. I would love that, by the way, Roger, but I just don't have the budget for it. So you mentioned AI. Is that where you'd go with this?
Right. Well, that's one way. But first, I mean, I think that these principles can be applied easily with or without AI, because everybody has, hopefully, has customers. If you've got large number of customers, then you can advertise that. Trusted by, depending on the nature of your market, by 2,000 customers or 20,000 or whatever. You may have, even if you only have a small number of customers, maybe you can get some testimonials from them, and in the case of a testimonial, this is social proof, but you want to maximize the impact of that social proof. What you don't want is one of these little sort of semi-anonymous things like, uh, yes, the service provided by this company was fantastic, and its initials JG or something. Like, who knows if that's even real, if that's a fake review they just made up. It's much more powerful if you can put maybe the name of the individual, their photo along with that, because suddenly you're telling your customers, okay, this is a real person. They have a real identity. And even more powerful, if you happen to be a B2B marketer, if you can include their role in their company. So if you are, selling some kind of a service and you have been, one of your customers is a design director at an advertising agency, excuse me, then you can um, use that. And that will not only be social proof, it'll add authority because if your service is something that a knowledgeable design director would use, you are adding the authority of that testimonial to that testimonial. So, I mean, these are just very simple things that everybody does. They don't necessarily even think about them as being psychology based, but they're definitely important. And now you mentioned AI, Deirdre. This is really a recent focus of mine, uh, and that is how you can get expert advice without really paying for that expert advice, especially important for small businesses. I mentioned big businesses may have behavioral science teams on staff, or they can hire consultants. People like me, or even some of the Nobel Prize winners, which I am not out there.
Yet.
If they want to pay enough, yes, I think my opportunity for that has passed, but we'll see. You never know. The uh, they they can afford to do this, so they can bring in teams. They can have people who do the research. But for small business, you really just need to sort of get to the recommendation in a much more direct, simple path, and that's where you can use tools like ChatGPT or Claude or the other generative AI models. And it's important to uh, prompt them correctly. And if what I can do. is, Deirdre, I've got a new guide to creating these prompts. We can put that in the show notes maybe, and for your audience members. But I'll describe this at a very simple level. You could use a simple prompting process. Say you are have a landing page on your website, and you want to get customers who may click on your Facebook ad or something to convert better. You could say, you could ask, describe what your product is, and say, how would Robert Cialdini recommend I improve my results? Or you could be a little bit more specific. You could say, uh, which of Robert Cialdini's principles do you think would be most applicable to this landing page and improving the results? And you can get more and more specific. And generally, and this is true not only with prompting for behavioral science, but in any kind of prompting process. Uh, if you're looking for uh, serious advice from an AI model, you really have to use much more detailed prompts than you are probably doing right now. You don't say, boy, I'm trying to create content for my website, so I'll write an article about the importance of pool maintenance or something. If you do that, you're going to get a very generic, low quality piece of content. But if you can turn that into a much more detailed conversation, what do you know about pool maintenance? What do you think the biggest customer pain points are with pool maintenance? You can start directing the process to achieve a much more detailed, better result. And it's the same thing with these psychology-based prompts. And the more information you can provide, the better the results will be. If you can explain, here's what my current landing page looks like, and provide the headlines or the text or maybe even the imagery, depending on the model. Some can handle that, some can't. Uh, it can advise you then on that piece of content. And if you can provide results, hey, we did an A/B test, and this headline worked 50% better than this other headline. This is all information that the model can use and to make even better recommendations for improvement. So, to me, that's really such a powerful tool. And my sort of latest technique is to use not just cite one expert, because you could go and ask about different experts. You could say, how would Robert Cialdini advise that I improve this? How could Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize winner in behavioral economics, who sadly we just lost last year, what would he suggest? And you could go down the list of people you happen to respect, and they don't have to be behavioral science experts. It could be sales experts. What would Dale Carnegie suggest in this situation? How can I relate to my customers better? You can use any kind of expert, but uh, what my what my recommendation would be is to actually ask for your AI to create a panel of experts. And I've created my own list of, I don't know, 25 or 30 experts that I can use as a starting point to say, of these experts, but you don't have to do that. You can just start by asking for suggestions, and then start narrowing down the field. Okay, I'm trying to improve a landing page on my website for this kind of business, and this is my customer profile. Which experts do you think could provide the best advice? And then choose, have it select maybe five. And if you want to add somebody and say, well, gee, you left off this person who I think is pretty good, you can add them in. Now you've got your sort of dream team of psychology experts to help you improve whether it's your content, your landing page, your Facebook ad headline, or whatever. Now, that isn't the only way. I asked Claude. Claude is my personal favorite at the moment for getting this kind of expert advice. And I said, okay, what do you think about the approach of building a team of experts from this larger list? And Claude said, well, it's not a bad idea, but it could be limiting you because you're only going to be drawing on that set of knowledge. So it suggested using the collective expertise of the entire group of 20 or 30. And that is a different approach. Personally, I think the broader the prompt is, then the more diffused answers you're going to get. Like if you said, what would all the top behavioral scientists suggest? You're probably going to get a more generic recommendation than if you said, what would Daniel Kahneman suggest? So to me, that expert panel is sort of a midpoint where you can get specific expertise. And when I prompt, I might ask, uh, what things would they agree on, and what might they differ on? And you can have this dialogue. You can ask, um, okay, what other information would be helpful to you? And when you ask that, then I guarantee the model will come back and give you 6 or 8 or 10 things that would help it make this recommendation. You probably won't be able to answer all of them. Like, provide a detailed customer profile or avatar or something. You may not be able to do that, but uh, if whatever information you can give it that it asks for, then do that, and that's going to make the recommendation better and better. And even after it provides its advice, uh, you can ask it other additional questions, like, okay, what did I forget to ask, or what are there any uh, unconventional ways that you could look at this, and so on. And these additional prompts will always elicit ideas that are a little bit different. And I think the important thing is the AI is not creating your marketing for you. It is giving you a whole bunch of recommendations that you can then say which ones you think will most resonate with your customers. And that's you can't think that AI is going to take the human factor out of the process. AI makes mistakes. I guarantee you that. For instance, one thing I've seen, I think it's they're getting a little bit better, but Robert Cialdini has originally had 6 principles since that was in 1984. He published his book Influence. Everybody in marketing and sales knows his 6 principles: social proof and authority, and so on. But more like, I don't know, half a dozen years ago or so, uh, he created a seventh principle, unity, which is a shared identity. It's sort of like what he called liking, where you have something in common with somebody. Hey, I have an Irish surname, you have an Irish surname, and wow, we have something in common. But this is more like if we were, a brother and sister, or even part of the same extended family. That would be then not just liking, it would be unity. We're part of that. Or if we both had some very strong, like both went to the same university and were part of the same organizations there, that would be more like unity than liking. So a very powerful tool, but it's not as well known because it only came out a few years ago. And also, it's a very difficult one for businesses to use because they often can't see, okay, I can see how we might have something in common with our customers, but boy, it isn't that tight of a bond. And so if you ask AI, hey, what do you know about Robert Cialdini's principles? There may be a 50-50 chance that it'll give you the 6 principles. And you can then say, well, ask for the seventh, or ask a reconsider it. Are you sure? In fact, I did that the other day. I asked an AI to analyze some data, and it came back with a list of the top 10 ordered. And I looked at it and said, no, that's not right. And I simply said, are you sure? And it came back and said, oh, I'm sorry, I missed this. And it came back with the correct listing. And when I checked that listing, it was indeed correct. But I mean, it shows, these examples show that you cannot 100% rely on AI. It's a helper. Think of it as a very clever assistant that never tires out, always has ideas, but isn't always right. That you wouldn't trust your assistant with everything, and that's how to think of AI. But it's a very powerful tool, and it can get you really great advice. But you want to keep asking for that in depth advice. And I'll throw out one more piece of advice here. And again, this will be in the guide. Um, you can ask it to elaborate. So, for instance, going back to the original concept of, I'm asking for expert psychology and behavioral science advice on my landing page at my website. Uh, I said, okay. After it came back with a sort of a consolidated set of recommendations, I said, okay, well, now these guys are behavioral scientists. Probably not one of them has ever actually designed a landing page for a website. So I said, okay, I picked out 3 landing page design experts that also I know personally, and I know they also use psychology in their work. I said, what would let's see, Brian Massey, Chris Goward, and Tim Ash, all landing page experts who've written books on this topic, what would they suggest or how would they modify these recommendations? And the AI came back with some suggestions that were unique to their own ideas and also added some ideas for instrumenting the landing page to make sure that it was performing as well as it might. So it provided that additional bit of advice that I wasn't exactly what I was expecting, but was super useful. How can you make sure that the landing page is working? Because these are practical landing page experts, not scientists. So, to me, when you can start using this entire process as a fairly, it takes a little bit of time, but on the other hand, you could do this, in an hour or two at most, and you'll have really, really good results. And so that's it in a nutshell. That's how I would recommend that a small business can apply these ideas. And
I
larger
kind of
businesses
feel,
too, because yeah,
sorry, go on.
every even big businesses don't have the money or the expertise to apply to every little problem they have. If they're going to design a major commercial, a TV commercial campaign, yes, they'll put a lot of budget into that. If they've got a 1,000-page website and they're trying to figure out what messaging to put on one of these 1,000 pages, they can't bring in consultants and whatnot for that. They're going to have to just take their best guess. And this approach is much better than a good guess.
100%. I kind of feel like jumping up and down with excitement in my chair about all of this, Roger, because
We want to stay on screen there, Deirdre.
yeah, it really does make it more accessible for small business owners. And oh my gosh, I loved what you said about asking it for the collective, who are the best people to do it. And to me, that reminds me a little bit about it's like making your AI a bit like Napoleon Hill's concept for masterminding, where you're bringing the best minds in the agency or industry to this one place and to help download some of their information, which is
Hmm.
incredibly beneficial. I've done that. I have done that. There's a few people, let's say, who build offers, and I've read all of their books about building offers, and I've gone in and created prompts based on that, and I pull in these specific people because their offer creation tools work. Like their techniques work. It's fantastic. So you turn your AI into your mastermind bestie. That's what I've taken from that bit. So
Yes, exactly. You're creating your own little mastermind.
yeah, yeah, great concept, fantastic. And I loved what you said about unity and liking as well with Robert Cialdini's thing. And it's so true. And I think that was really apparent during COVID, specifically where people were trying to buy local. And in Ireland in particular, let's say shipping and all of that sort of stuff really slowed down to a large degree. And everybody was encouraging people to buy Irish, buy local. And it really took off where people were supporting each other much more. And but you're right, it's like a movement, isn't it? It's like people want to have that sense of belonging and have that purpose. And it's that connection that they experience in there as part of that, right?
Well, sure. And even using your example of COVID, I think we had, of course, lockdowns here too. And it was sometimes difficult to get meals where normally you just, pop into a restaurant if you wanted a meal, but not prepare it yourself. But we saw some organizations respond differently. I think one in particular was a local restaurant, just a part of the only like three owned in the entire area, so it's not a big national chain or anything. And uh, their messaging was, "We are keeping all of our people on staff. We've repurposed our servers into delivery drivers in some cases, and uh, first of all, we saw that they were making a real effort, but it was also that community thing. We're part of your community, and we are really doing these things to show that we're responsible parts of the community. And to me, that was very powerful. I mean, even years after, well, I still remember that. And if I had to make a choice between them or, say, a national chain restaurant in something comparable, I would definitely choose them because I could see that they were responsive to being part of our local community. And that works in many ways. You can have different things in common. Here we're in the state of Texas, which is one of 50 United States. But I think if you would ask most Texans, they would say it is the best and most unique state. I mean, other states may feel that way, but Texas is kind of unique in that it has this very strong identity. You're not from Texas, you're a Texan, where, if you're from Ohio, which is another fine state, which I lived in for a year only, but there people didn't really consider part of Ohio as part of their personal identity. They were maybe a sports team there might be part of the Cleveland football team might be part of their identity or something, but not so much Ohio. Where in Texas, uh, every if you drive down a street, every house has some kind of Texas symbol on it, a Texas star, an outline in the shape of the state, flying a Texas flag. You can go to the supermarket and you'll find Texas-shaped frying pans and waffle pans and cookie cutters, which you just don't see in other states. So I've used that as an example of the difference between liking and unity, where if I'm from Ohio and I'm walking streets of Dublin and bump into a fellow American who says, "Oh man, I lost my passport. I need some help. Can you, take me to someplace?" If they're from Ohio and I'm from Ohio, I'll feel somewhat obligated to help them, and I'll probably assist them in whatever way I can, and that's liking. But if I find they're from Texas, then it's like, wow, we're practically related. Gee, do you need to stay in my hotel room tonight? Is there anything else I can do? Do you need some cash? And it's so that's kind of the difference. Now, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but that's the way you need to think about it. And I think that some examples that Cialdini would use are familial unity, people who are part of your family, people who are on a small team together, who support each other, whether it's a sports team or a military team or anything else. Everybody's got each other's back all the time, and those are kind of extreme examples. But you can nudge toward that by showing that you are part of that sort of same tribe even. I've used examples of uh, sporting goods companies where they often show that they are involved in the sport themselves, but the ones that really do a good job of that are trying to not only maybe invoke liking but even a little bit of unity. And I'm reminded of one, like, well, the biggest fishing supply company in the country is had their history on their website. How they were founded by a guy who was 100 years ago, beard and everything, a real old fashioned looking guy who was crazy about fly fishing and began making flies for his friends and it developed into a business, and that's where they are today. Then they talk about their tens of thousands of customers, their website, how many visitors their website gets, and all this stuff, which to me is absolutely the wrong. People don't care about any of that stuff. And I saw another company that I thought did a much better job in a very simple way. They had a bunch of their employees standing on a frozen lake in Minnesota, uh, holding this big old fish standing on the ice, and they're all bundled up in winter gear and whatnot. And to me, this is showing, okay, we are part of this same crazy group here that would be out on a lake in sub-freezing weather, making holes in it to catch fish. And to me, that was a much more than it's moving it away just from, yeah, we like fishing too, to we are part of the same crazy tribe. And the more if you have a business that can show that, that's a great example. And even if you don't have that kind of thing in common with your customer, I'll give you one more example here, Deirdre, of how you can at least invoke liking. And there is Tito's vodka popular in Ireland? Has it made it across the pond? Okay. It's, as far as I know, the number one selling vodka in the United States now. It's made right here in Austin, Texas. And a few years ago, they launched a campaign that on its face makes no sense. It's vodka for dog people, right?
Okay.
Like what do dogs have to do with vodka? Absolutely nothing. And they would show images of people with dogs in their advertising, but they did something else that was pretty smart. They created all kinds of swag, all kinds of little merch, like little sweaters that said Tito's on, or big sweaters for the bigger dogs, uh, dog food bowls that had Tito's on them, and so on. And they created a hashtag, vodka for dog people, one word, of course. And this was really brilliant because nobody is going to post a picture of them holding their bottle of Tito's vodka on Instagram, right? But are they going to post a picture of their pet in a little Tito's sweater looking really cute? Of course they are. Or maybe using the food bowl or water bowl, or even posing with that bottle of vodka with their little sweater on. To me, that was absolutely brilliant work, and it's invoking liking where really there's nothing in common. The vodka really doesn't have anything in common with dogs, but they took this thing that a lot of people have in common and said, okay, we'll adopt that as part of our identity. And there are, I think, I forget how many million. There's about 5 times as many dog owners as there are vodka drinkers. So it's not, you're not really excluding people, and people don't generally hate dog owners either. So it's not controversial. And then they did one other little clever thing, I thought, in their messaging. They didn't say vodka for dog lovers or vodka for dog owners. They said vodka for dog people. And it's not really invoking a strong sense of unity, but it's kind of nudging in that we are part of that same tribe, that same dog tribe. So anyway, this is a tool that anybody can use, even if you sell industrial shelving or something.
Such an interesting example. And hilariously enough, while you've been talking about Tito's and dogs, my dog has been in here trying desperately to get me to pet her. So,
Can we see her?
well, she's looking
Oh,
to go outside right
she
now.
gave
So,
up. Okay.
she gave up. So I have a question about all of this for social media as well, Roger, right? Because a lot of my clients, they're not in a position to do paid ads yet. They use email marketing and they're on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, and they're trying to increase brand awareness through organic social media. So we've talked about social proof for conversion and things like that, and different ways you can optimize landing pages for conversion. But what about brand awareness in the first instance? So Tito's is a good example maybe of that, but what other suggestions do you have where people could, like, solopreneurs can tap into this neuromarketing stuff for brand awareness and engagement?
Right. Well, obviously, if you are uh, creating content, we talked about AI. You can incorporate some of these principles of psychology into your marketing using AI, or just using what you know. In other words, instead of posting a picture of your company office on Facebook, post a picture of a satisfied customer on Facebook, and you're bringing social proof in there. And that's one very simple thing to do. You can certainly use these tools to create more content for you. So you can, because I mean, one of the keys. I'm not a social media marketing expert, but certainly one of the keys is being consistent, being out there. If you're trying to generate uh, more business that way, you can't just randomly and sporadically post every month or two. It's not going to happen. So you can use these tools to, first of all, just help you create content on a more regular basis, but then also how to craft the messaging in your content. As long as you're going to post that, how can you make that more persuasive for your customers? And also, how can you avoid sounding too self-promotional? Because we all have a tendency, if we've got a business, hey, this is this cool thing I do. This is why we're the best at this. And a little bit of that is okay. But if all you're talking about is how good you are, or your company is, or your products are, your services are, you are going to not en- get any engagement with people who see it. They're going to say, "Oh, that's just that again," and they're going to ignore it. But if you can tell interesting stories, going back to neuromarketing, stories are incredibly powerful. And I mean, people have written books about selling with stories and so on. And probably many of our listeners and viewers here today are familiar with that work. But There's actually brain science research that shows exactly how powerful stories are. They have found that when they connected two people, each in their own fMRI brain scan machine, that when one person started telling a story or reading a story, within a very short time, their brainwaves actually synchronized. So stories are about as close a form of mind control as you can get. If you want to take over someone else's brain, tell a story. You will have their attention. Have you ever listened to whether it's a sales pitch or maybe a sermon in a church or a speech at some conference you're attending? And it's like blah, blah, blah. And you're sort of thinking about what you're going to do when this is done. And then the speaker says, let me tell you a story. And suddenly it's like, well, your brain snaps into gear and wait, story ahead. And if it's a good one, you'll listen. If it's a bad one, maybe you'll tune back out again. But, to me, that's something you can do. And if you are trying to engage people with your social media content, tell stories, tell a personal story, tell a story about your customer. You can even tell a hypothetical story, but those are maybe a little bit less engaging because they sound made up. But whatever, it's a fantastic tool, and they're absolutely free.
Stories are my thing. I love stories. Tell stories all day long. So that's a great one. People have heard me if they've listened to the show before talk about storytelling and how powerful it is. And Roger, there's one thing I really want to touch on before I let you go, and that is it kind of feels a little bit illegal to know how to tap into people's decision making and their brain to be able to use it for marketing. So, from an ethical standpoint, how can we make sure that people are using this in a genuine way to really help and serve people rather than manipulate or exploit them?
Great. Well, that's a super question. And I think if you hear any of the leading thinkers in this space, like Bob Cialdini, speak, uh, like every couple of minutes, the word ethical will pop out of their mouth just to remind people. And I guess I haven't talked too much about that aspect of it. But first of all, when the concept of neuromarketing was first sort of became commonly discussed, there was a lot of fear that uh, somehow marketers would be able to take over people's brains with marketing. And in fact, there was a an early book that had how to push the buy button in your customer's brain as part of its title. And this made people really worried that wow, if there's a buy button in there, our marketer is going to start pushing this. And well, as it's turned out, there is no magic way to get your customers to act. You can't take a customer who doesn't want to buy your stuff and suddenly turn them into a robot that buys it. But that those fears were overblown. There are no super commercials. People were fearful like super advertisements would be so powerful. People would sort of drop what they were doing and rush to the store to buy the product. Didn't happen. Not going to happen in the future. But nevertheless, these tools can be very powerful in getting people to act. There are certainly unethical uses of these tools. I remember visiting a website there was a product that I needed and wanted to buy, and they were the vendor, leading vendor for this product. And I will get to their website, and there's huge, last the sale expires at midnight tonight, and giant red banners emphasizing that these super sale prices were only going to be here for a few more hours. And so I thought, okay, I think I actually made a few purchases there, and then I went back the next day, and it was the same. The prices were expiring at midnight again, same prices, and again, it's just what they were doing. Now that is using scarcity, but in an unethical way because it's false scarcity. If you tell somebody, this is the last one of these things I have, and when you buy it, it's going to be gone, or if someone else buys it, you're not going to be able to get it. And if you're lying about that, then that's unethical. What you want to be sure is that anything that you are saying and doing is actually true. It's ethical, and that you're really, one of the great sales thinkers of our time was Zig Ziglar. Wrote I don't know, dozen or 2 dozen books on sales techniques. how to close sales, 20 ways to close a sale. And when you look at it on its face, you get a lot of people say, well, this sounds like pure manipulation. You are somehow getting a customer to buy something they don't want or need by using all these underhanded tactics. And uh, Zig Ziglar, well, he said a couple of things. He said, first of all, your most important tool is your own integrity. Your best persuasion tool is your own integrity. And by that, I think he meant, you know, if you really believe in your product and if you're really getting your customer to a better place, then you will be persuasive and you can use some of these techniques. If you are getting your customer to place an order with you that they're going to regret in the next day or two, then that is not proper use of the technique. And even using example of this woman who was actually not at all wealthy. She lived in uh, a very maybe a ramshackle house, not clearly very little money, and he sold her an expensive set of cookware. Like it used to be a thing. I remember, boy, probably maybe 40 years ago or longer. There were people who went door to door selling expensive cookware and pots and pans that were really supposed to be special, that were quite expensive. And uh, uh, clearly, this woman didn't necessarily need that to keep cooking her simple meals. Uh, but so, when somebody questioned that, well, was this uh, ethical to sell this expensive cookware set to this person? He said, well, uh, you should have seen the tears that came to her eyes when she put it in her shelf, that she was so proud of that. She knew that she could have her neighbors over now and show them this, and that she would get that same feeling over and over again. So maybe from a practical standpoint, it wasn't the best purchase, but at least from an emotional standpoint, she couldn't afford a new house, but she could afford this expensive cookware that would really elevate her perception of herself. So, I mean, that's maybe not the best example, but I think the point is if you were getting your customer to a better place truthfully, then any of these persuasive techniques are certainly fine, but they're not fine if you're manipulating somebody. If you say there's only one hotel room left now, and somebody buys it the next day, that same hotel room is there at the same price. That's not ethical, and there are somewhat ethical workarounds for this. Like, oh, we got another block from the hotel or whatever, where they knew that block was going to be available, and they're to me, oh, these are very borderline situations. You want to be making promises that are you don't have to explain why they're ethical; that they simply are true. But anyway, that's to me that's how to handle ethics. Do the right thing. Help your customers get to a place that they want to be and won't regret being a few days later, and you're fine.
Yeah. Oh, totally hear you on that. I couldn't agree with you more. And the urgency, scarcity, money back guarantee, demonstrate integrity, folks. If you say that, it's urgent, have a reason why, explain why. If it's scarce, explain why. And then take off those red banners afterwards. Don't experience like what Roger did and go back to the website and it's still there. If you've got to stay up to midnight to take the thing down, stay up till midnight and take the thing down. But demonstrate your integrity and be ethical with it. Yeah. Roger, oh my gosh, it's just been such a joy to have you on the show. Do you have any final words or anything you'd like to say to listeners before we finish?
No, I think just remember that your customer's brain is making decisions in ways that you don't necessarily expect, and that the more you focus on some of these non-conscious techniques, the more effective your sales process will be. But again, do it ethically.
Fantastic. Roger, thank you so much. And it's such a pleasure. It's been such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Deirdre. It's been a lot of fun.
Let's recap some absolute gold from today's episode with Roger Dooley. Neuromarketing isn't just for big brands. Solo entrepreneurs and small businesses can use it to boost sales, increase engagement, and create loyal customers, just like the big brands. AI can be your secret marketing weapon because it can stimulate expert advice to help you craft more persuasive messaging. And persuasion isn't manipulation. Using psychology ethically means helping your customers make decisions they won't regret. So your next step, download Roger's free persuasion prompt guide from the show notes and start optimizing your marketing with behavioral science today. And if you love this episode, please do me a favor, share it with a fellow entrepreneur who needs to hear it. Somebody maybe whose marketing just isn't working for them right now. Let's help more business owners master their business and their marketing. And of course, make sure you're following the podcast so you never miss an episode again. Until next time, keep mastering your business.